Hello, everyone. My name is Chukwagazim Franklin Okey-Iwobi, but I go by my middle name, Franklin, because that's the easiest to remember and say for most people. I am a first year at the moment biochem major at Davis, and I'm also pre-med at the moment. And this is with my first video on the channel, and this channel is basically going to be about um, mostly tutoring in STEM classes and explaining concepts in a different way than the professor. Like, let's say your professor didn't explain it right, then I got you. I'll explain it right if I understand it. And the this channel is not just about helping other people; it's about helping myself as well. Because I feel like if I explain these concepts and pretend like I'm explaining to other people, it'll help me understand it better myself too. So the first video on this channel is, so I'm gonna start, the first video is starting with my, what I say, not favorite class to date here at UC Davis. And quite oddly, it's not like, it wasn't a GE or anything, it was a class that most people did not like at all. And it is chemistry. And not the first one, but the second one, the Chem 2A series. I mean 2B, since it's the second one, Chem 2B series. This video is how to pass this class. And not just pass this class, but how to get an A in this class. Not an A minus, but an actual A. You know, the one where they give you a 4.0. So the first, well, in this class was don't get me wrong, people don't like Chem, but me personally, I really enjoy this class because it has a lot of real, like compared to the first Chem, Chem 2A, it had a lot of real life ties, and this was a very fun class. In my time taking it, I had Professor Dream, and she was an underrated teacher, you know, great teacher. When I was trying to pick classes at the time, like all other professors were taking and she was the only choice I had. I was like, you know what? I'll just pick it because I didn't have any other choice. And it went great. She's underrated. So, back to it. How do you pass Chem 2B? So the first, I'll give you mostly basic tips, but these basic tips are basic for a reason. It's because it's not a magic secret or whatever. They're pretty well known, but then people don't stress or emphasize enough about how valuable these tips actually are. And that's what I'm here to do. So the first tip that I give, first and foremost, is to attend all the lectures, okay? Like, I don't mean watch the videos in class and your bed after it's done. I mean actually walk or bike to the lecture hall and go to these lectures and sit down and attend these lectures, take notes to these lectures, listen to the professor in person while I attend his lectures. You could sit in the front or the back, it doesn't matter, but your presence being there, and not just go there and be on your phone or like shop in middle class, but actually pay attention. Like, they're not very long, especially the Professor Dream I had compared to others. She only had a 15-minute lecture. So you just sit there for 15 minutes and try to absorb the information that she's putting out there. And while you're at this lecture, there are key things that you could do to help make the lecture worthwhile attending. So the first is to take clear notes. I know it's important having to listen in class. Like, they always talk about make sure you listen instead of taking notes, but I think both are equally important. And generally, it's better to take clear notes in person while you're there. You might have to sacrifice a little bit on the listening part. Just make sure you have whatever style of notes work for you. Make sure you have it written down in a place that you can always go back, and you don't even have to look at it for a long time. Just glance at it, and the memory comes back to you. And that's something important because you can always rewatch the lecture, but then it's going to be hard making yourself take notes after the lecture already happened. So it's always better to take the notes while the lecture is happening in person. Another tip that I would give that also goes with attending the lectures is while you're there. Like, this isn't a must. None of these in the list are must to get an A. You can do nothing on the list and still get an A, but it's, from my experience, what would most likely help you get an A. So while you're at these lectures, instead of attending alone, it's always better to have at least one study buddy in the class. And you don't even have to study with the person. Just when you're going to lectures, it's always better not to go alone, and make sure you have someone come in there with you, so like you guys can talk to each other during the lecture, bounce ideas off, ask each other silly questions that you're not supposed to ask the professor. Just have someone basically to talk to and socialize while you're at this place. Because sometimes the lectures are boring, and it makes time go by better and helps you understand more if you have someone just there. Like during my time taking the class, I had this one guy, his name was Sean. We weren't even the best of friends, but then we would go to the lectures together, and it was just fun having someone to always, like, he kind of was the reason that I showed up to most. Like, I was going to go to lectures anyways, but there's just some days that you're like, is it even worth it going? But then, hey, I was like, oh, I know I have someone there waiting for me, so kept me motivated to come and made the class a little bit more entertaining. And another tip to do good in Chem is to, when you attend these lectures, like sometimes they don't make sense to you, but it's always important to make sure that you understand at least 50% of the topic. Like, and I don't mean like I said, 50%. It's very vague. It could be ranging from about 30% to 70%. Like, you don't have to understand everything, even up to 100% actually. You don't have to understand everything, but make sure you understand something. Some of the time you might understand nothing during these lectures, and some of the times you might understand everything during the lecture. So it's a hit or miss, but try to strive for knowing some things. Like, try to listen during these lectures and understand some of the things that I said in these lectures, like the general idea, the topic. Like, make sure the fundamental things, like the little things, make sense. And luckily, if you don't understand some part of the lecture, we're in modern day times now, and I know it's UC Davis specifically. Most of the classes are recorded, probably other universities as well. So you can always go back and rewatch the lecture at 2x speed, and then you could always slow it down at the parts you don't understand, rewatch it multiple times if you have to. And if you still don't understand the lecture, that's still okay as well. You don't have to particularly understand all the lectures from your professor alone. There's a reason why there are other resources like tutoring. There are also multiple online videos, including mine in the future. Hopefully you can watch videos of mine to understand the topics as well. And some people do this as well. Me personally, I never quite did it because all my life I always hated them, but you could always use textbooks. They're also, I guess, an important asset that you may or may not have, that you can make use of if you do have access to it. And when you make sure that you understand at least, give or take, 80 to 90% of the topics that are covered in class, it brings me to my next point on how to do good in the class is do the homeworks. Like, I don't know in how every chem class works, but in mine, when I did it, there were weekly homeworks every week, or sometimes once every other week, but they were usually repetitive homeworks that carried on throughout the class. And these are important. Always do the homeworks. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't have enough time. Try to make a little bit of time to do at least one question from one concept of the class you're in, because most of the time homework questions correlate with the work you're currently doing in class in the same concepts, and that's usually how it gives you experience into how the tests and all the stuff, the finals are going to look like. So make sure you know how to apply the concepts in a question related way, and that's what the homeworks physically help you do. Like, you can understand the concepts in class, but then the homework teaches you the application, which is what most of what you're going to be tested on is. And while you do these homeworks, it is advisable that you don't entirely cheat. And I said that purposely, entirely. Like, let's say you get the concept, but then the homework is just fluff questions of things that you're already sure you know how to do confidently. It's just a lot of them, and it's a waste of your time. Like, you could, I guess, I'm not endorsing it, but you could potentially, use outside sources to get the homework done. But for concepts that you haven't covered yet, you haven't practiced enough yet, it's very advisable not to use AI on it for at least for the first time. Like, you use AI to help you. Like, let's say you're not really shy to do it. You can use AI to help you show you how to do it, but then do it on your own. It gives you the practice reps in which you're going to need eventually, and you're going to be grateful for. And another point to the homework is to understand how it's done. So what I mean by that is, like, let's say you have a software. For me, I had I think a software called Cengage Owl, where you did the homework, and then when you got the answer right or wrong, it tells you how you were supposed to do it, or the best way to do it, then gives you the right answer after you get it right or wrong. And basically just look through it. You don't have to completely spend a lot of time on it, but just see how the software did it, how it is expected of you to do it, and then make sure you understand why they're doing it and how to do it on your own if you're asked without being shown the answers first. In addition to understanding how the problem is done, it's also advisable to focus on your weak points of the homework. Like, for example, in mine, I had I had the owl thing. So for my class specifically, you only had to get 2 of the problems right to get a master in the question and move on. So for problems that I wasn't quite sure, I wasn't confident on my abilities, I did 3 of the problems instead of 2 of the problems. So that's, if you can do that too as well, that's also advisable, to spend more time on the things that you're not really confident doing in the homework, and then try to do it on your own. Make sure you know how to do it on your own, and make those weak points your strong points. And finally, if you're still struggling on a particular topic or so, you can always use outside resources. Like, you could use AI, you could use other YouTube videos, you could use my YouTube videos if I have videos on that particular topic. You could ask the professor themselves, ask the TAs in office hours, or ask other people that do kind of understand the topic. And make sure you try to know how to do most types of problems that the homework shows you how to do, or like at least have a fair understanding of it. And another tip to do well in the class is to do the discussion worksheets. And some classes might not have discussion worksheets, but from what I know at UC Davis, I think most Gen Con classes have access to these discussion worksheets. And luckily, if you got into a good one, they have answers to these discussion worksheets as well. And you get allocated discussion time in class where you can do these worksheets. And if you're lucky as well, you could have a good TA. Like, I had a good TA that explained the difficult problems on the worksheets. And make sure you know how to do the worksheets. Try to watch videos on how to do the worksheets. Try to use AI to show you how they got to set answer from the answers on the discussion worksheets. And it's just important to know how to do, because the discussion worksheets, I think, covers most of the topics that you learn in class or are expected to know in class. And these are like fair game stuff that they can test you on. Like, you can maybe literally find the exact same discussion worksheet problem on the test, but with different numbers. And if you know how to do them on the discussion worksheet, then you'd probably get that question right on the test as well, which is, it's nice to know that you can do a particular question right every time if you see them on the test. That's basically like free points. And by do all the discussion worksheet problems, I mean like all to most of it, because even if like you say, oh, I know how to do this, it's just better to write them down somewhere, either on your iPad or an actual piece of paper where you print them down, because it gives you the practice. It's like when you play a sport, you get better after you practice it. So doing the discussion worksheet is basically practicing up for the final. From my experience, I remember at the start of the class, I didn't have enough time to do the discussion worksheets, but I understood the concepts of the topic that most of the midterm was going to cover. But in one particular problem, I remember this on the midterm because it's one of the few problems I got wrong. But it was basically a unit conversion problem, which should have been the easiest thing on the test. I already did all the hard work of the problem. I just messed up on the unit conversions and I got it wrong. But I feel like if I did more practice, I would have been more efficient on converting units. And that's probably a question that I would have got right if I did enough practice beforehand and got comfortable with changing in and out of units. Along with the discussion worksheets, it's also important to do the practice finals and the practice midterms as well right before the test. And it's also important to do these about a day or two before the actual test, because it gives you time to like ask questions and stuff on it. Like, you can ask others, you can ask the TA, you can go to office hours, you can ask professor themselves, you can do more like just more time between the practice. Make sure you're confident you can do the practice test before the actual test. And a lot of times, don't these practice tests are basically like cheat codes. They tell you not all the topics, but it covers most of the topics, right, that is going to be covered on the test. And the FRQs, at least in my experience, they're structured the same or similarly to what the actual test was like. So it was like, wow, I already did a problem just like this in the practice test, so it makes it a lot easier to do it on the actual test. And also, the multiple choice problems on my practice test, when I had them, they were like about half of them were similar to the real test, like similar wordings, similar situations, and it just made the real test easier because I've done something similar to that right before, and I made sure I fully understood the process of how to get the answers right before, and then took the actual test. So it's really important to do the practice midterms and finals, all of them. And finally, if you do all these right and you understand most of the topics, you know the resources to use, you know the works, you do the worksheets right, and you understand how it's done and the homework, you're probably going to do good on the test. And the class, if you do good on the test and obviously you get the homework done, well, that's most of the grade. The only other portion left, I think, are the labs, and those aren't that difficult if you do everything on time, turn everything on time. At the time, we use LabFlow, and for the pre-labs are easy because you get 50 trials at it, and a lot of it is multiple choice. So even if I don't get it, I just keep trying random things until I get it right, and then I stick with it. So it shouldn't be that hard to pass the labs if you show up to everything, if you're lucky enough to be able to show up to everything. And also for the post labs, those are the most difficult part of the labs. And yeah, I don't really have any advice on that. That's just basically good luck on that. Try to work with others and to use outside resources if you can. Not saying you should, but yeah. If you do all those things right, then you're bound to get a in the class. You're bound to pass the class at least. Most likely we'll get a if you do most of these things right. And that's my summary on how to do good in Chem 2B.